Hi, Stuart and Corinne Kane, talking to you from Sydney, Australia after day 2 of closing argument in the trial against Johnson & Johnson Dupai over the ASR Hip implant. Today, in the second day of closing argument, we heard from Mr. Finch, lead counsel from Johnson & Johnson. I'd just like to remind everyone that this is a layperson's take on what happened and our observations of what we heard in court. Mr. Finch started the day whilst recognising that there had been some intercompany communications that inferred that Dupai may have been aware around issues of the ASR, that they were only prepared to admit that these issues were after the year 2006. The one thing that Mr. Finch did ask everyone is that we should all accept that when they make their statement of quality of their product and its fitness for sale, that would be sufficient that the product go on the market and there be no questions around this. He then went on to suggest that through precedent that the consumer protection in this case wasn't valid, that the manufacturer had the right to put the product on sale and that we as the consumer should just accept what occurred thereafter. A very important point that was brought up today, which I know all of you will be interested in, is that he believed under legislation and laws in this country that testing is not the manufacturer's responsibility. Now, I would hope that if I was having a medical device implanted in me, no matter what it was, that it had been tested thoroughly. Again, I'll leave that up to you to decide. They again attacked surgical technique. By all means, please let your surgeons know that this company, again, is reinforcing that it was poor surgical technique that caused these devices to fail. Today they talked about arc of cover, which is the area of the acetabulum cup that covers the femoral head, the angle that the cups were actually implanted in people's acetabulum, and the placement of the femoral stem, again leading to the fact that it was poor placement as opposed to poor technology. I would tend to say that it's poor technology as opposed to poor placement, given that my ASR was confirmed as being placed correctly by their independent medical assessment. Another thing that was brought up today was that because Dupai was using innovative technology, that we should all accept the risk of harm. And that they could not possibly have known that there was anything wrong with the implant. The exact statement that was used, quote unquote, was, "We can't possibly test our product for every possible outcome." The lead counsel then tried to discredit suffering around dislocation and subluxation. Now, I encourage any of you that have experienced a dislocation or a subluxation to think about your level of suffering whilst that was going on. Fortunately, I've never experienced those. I only snapped an implant in half. But everyone that I've spoken to that has experienced dislocation and subluxation assures me that it is very painful. Again, feel free to let me know how you feel about that. The product, the ASR, was nominated today that it was actually better for wear than its competition. So if this product was very much better for wear, why was it recalled? I ask you. That didn't seem to be addressed, only the fact that their product was better for wear, and we should accept that. Again, the quote was that you can't ask a manufacturer to be continually looking at what is on the cutting edge. I would have hoped that in medical device technology, all manufacturers were looking at what is on the cutting edge. He then went on to mention that there was evidence presented in the case that they had tested Birmingham devices. This is Johnson & Johnson tested the Birmingham devices to actually discredit that device to be able to sell ASRs. They've conveniently forgot to mention this in their evidence. There's another issue that was brought up today, microseparation. Now, microseparation is a small portion of time that during the process of walking and movement that the ball and cup separate mildly. Now, the evidence that came out from the plaintiff's point of view was that this was an issue around wear, and it was causing great problems with wear. DePie assures us that microseparation is a non-issue and should be struck from the case. However, they also admitted today that in 2001 and 2003, they were actually testing around microseparation. Indeed, they sought funding from outside sources, independent sources, for further testing. If they were testing over a number of years and even sought outside funding for it, I think that there may have been an issue around it. However, they wanted us to believe that there was no issue around it. Another thing that was most alarming is that they avoided using the term metallosis. It was never mentioned in the 2 days of testimony and discussions that we've heard. They used the term osteonecrosis, which obviously is bone death, but they would not use the term metallosis. In fact, they moved to strike out any references to metallosis and or taper and cup, wear and fretting. The other thing that, on top of the metallosis issue that they went into is that today it was described that our implant was made of the same stuff as other MOM devices. Hence, they did not have to use the terms cobalt, chromium or titanium. They then went on to say that if there was wear around their product, why was the stuff that wore off their product worse than the stuff that wore off other products? In summary, I don't know if many of you have visited an IKEA shop. However, if you do walk into an IKEA shop, they have a device that tests their chairs. In fact, it gives you the wear and tear over 30 years of use. How is it that a company that is providing a product that you sit your ass on is willing to test that product for 30 years of wear and tear, and this company, Johnson & Johnson DePie, believe that they do not need to test a medical device that's going into your body? Think about that. They also mentioned today that the Birmingham patients got a run in hindsight with the Birmingham recall, that maybe they now understand that the technology of metal on metal, or MOM as they like to refer to it, might have been flawed after all. There is no admission though that the ASR was a particularly bad device. The other thing that is key is that to them we're all statistics. We kept being referred to as statistics right through these 2 days. At the end of the day, those of you from Johnson & Johnson that may be watching this, we are human beings. We are not statistics. And I would urge all of you that if you are to receive a medical device in the future of any sort, you seek written clarification that that device has been tested and that you're not being put in harm's way or at risk through a device of any sort that has not undergone thorough testing. Finally, if I was a Johnson & Johnson shareholder and I was made aware that they had spent $17 million to this point defending this case, I would be starting to ask some questions about how my money was being spent, because another key thing today was that they wanted further time to develop their submissions. More money, more expense, for what gain? Thanks guys, really appreciate you watching our videos. It's been a tough couple of days. Our side of the argument gets to close on Friday, and I will be letting you know how we get on there. Thank you so much for all the support and wishes that we've received. Please watch and share this video with as many people as you can. It was amazing the response we got last night, and I look forward to hearing from you all tomorrow. Take care.